Me. My name is Jamila Watkins from the City of Detroit Office of Contracting and Procurement. Today is August 6th, 2024, and this is the virtual pre-bid conference for RFP 184962 for Housing and Revitalization, otherwise known as HRD, the Renew Detroit program, roof and window replacement. I'm going to, at this time, turn it over to our Deputy Chief Procurement Officer, who's on the call as well for her introduction, Latanya Lemon.
Good morning, everyone. It's still morning. Thank you for joining us. I am Tony Limit, the Deputy Chief Procurement Officer, and thank you for joining us. Back to you, Jamila.
Thank you, and I want to turn it over to my supervisor, Eric Cooper.
Good morning. My name is Eric Cooper. I'm supervisor here at the Office of Contracting and Procurement. Welcome. Thank you for participating in this pre-bid.
Thank you, Eric. And I will also turn it now to Darlene Carroll from the Renew Detroit team from HRD.
Good morning, everyone. If you could just give me a quick thumbs up if you can hear me okay. That will let me know. Okay, wonderful. So good morning, everyone. My name is Darlene Caro. I'm the director of Renew Detroit, and I will be on today presenting some information to you along with some of my staff, and I will kick it over to them to introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brittany Drake. I'm the construction manager for Renew Detroit. And along with our construction team, we have a couple other members. I will pass to Marilyn for introduction.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Marilyn Morant. I am the project superintendent for Renew Detroit.
So
Good
my name
morning.
is, oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
Sorry,
Rashida,
Travis,
go
my
ahead.
bad.
Good morning. This is Travis McAdory. I'm the construction analyst for Renew Detroit.
Okay, so my name is Rashida Bradley. I'm the deputy director of Renew Detroit, and we have one of my team members on the call as well. Melissa, say hello.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Melissa Malone, and I am a program specialist under Renew Detroit.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Obamanu. I am the office operations supervisor with Renew Detroit.
Awesome, and I think that's everyone. So back to you, Jamila.
Thank you so much, Darlene. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen at this time. So I'm going to show all your lovely faces, and I'm about to bring up our presentation. Here it is. Let's go to that first page. Okay, so I've already introduced myself. I've already identified the RFP. And let me just go over the agenda. Here we go. So we've done our introductions. We're going to go over I didn't go over the previous pre-bid conference call information. I'll go over that shortly. Then I'll go over the project timeline and key dates, minimum qualifications, evaluation criteria, and required proposal content and format. It won't take that long. And then I'm going to hand it over to HRD. HRD is going to discuss the project background and description of needs. They're going to describe the attachments that are included with this RFP and the instructions for completing them. And then we'll go to Q&A. Right, so first, the overview of the pre-bid conference call. This call is being recorded. Once we open it up for Q&A, please state your name and the company or organization that you represent. All bidders are encouraged to ask questions. You may enter them into the chat at any time. So if you are unable or you don't feel comfortable with coming on the call and either being photographed or recorded or whatever, you can enter your questions in the chat. All verbal responses to questions provided today are unofficial until documented in writing as an official response in the supplier portal. And then, of course, you'll submit any additional questions not asked today in the supplier portal, and we will respond to all bidders via the supplier portal. So the other point I wanted to make about this call is that it is being recorded and it will be shared. This recording will be shared as early as tomorrow. for those of you who want to listen back or for anyone who didn't have a chance to join today. So the project background, the City of Detroit Office of Contracting and Procurement, OCP, on behalf of the Housing and Revitalization Department, HRD, requests proposals from qualified respondents to render certain professional services as set forth in this RFP to provide construction services for roof and window replacements throughout the City of Detroit. We're going to go to the project timeline and overview. So this bid or negotiation was published or advertised on Thursday, July 25th. Today is the pre-proposal conference. Any questions that are not asked today, or you may not have heard something or may not understand something today, you can re-ask a question. Just make sure you submit your questions through the supplier portal by Friday, August 9th. That's this Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please have your portal set. If you are registered as a supplier, make sure your portal is set. You're going to have to manually do that yourself to Eastern Standard Time because Eastern is not the default setting. I don't know why, but it's not. So please make sure you have your portal set to Eastern, because if you submit questions after that, I may not be able to help you. That's also critical when it's time to submit your proposal. Answers will be distributed. We'll aim for Wednesday the 14th, maybe before. It depends on how many questions we have. And the proposals are due Monday, August 26th by 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, everything does need to be submitted via the portal. I do suggest that you try to do your submission beforehand, especially if you're new to submitting proposals, because if you have difficulty, we may not be able to help you if you are not submitting that before 3 p.m. If you're more, experienced with the portal and have done this before, that's different. But if you're new, I would suggest that you even just try practice navigating through the supplier portal, just to make sure you understand everything. If you have questions, please ask me before that deadline. And I'm going to put in the chat in a few minutes. We have an e-procurement team who assists our bidders and our suppliers with the portal, with navigation, with submission, everything, even with registration. So if you're on this call, you have not yet registered, you'll have to do that before you'll be able to submit a proposal. And I will put their information in the chat in just a few minutes. So there's that. Next, just want to go over some information from the RFP. So minimum qualifications, and I'm not going to keep you long, I promise. Minimum qualifications are found on section 3.1, page 13 of the RFP. I don't know if you can, I'm going to drag this over. Okay, Darlene, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you see this page that I'm displaying? Thank you. I'm asking you because you're the only person I see right now in my little window. So minimum qualifications are here. Again, that's page 13 of the RFP. Respondent must show you must show capacity to complete a minimum of 25 properties per month. You must have prior experience, at least 10 properties since January 2022, and so on and so on. So I would ask that you read these thoroughly. I don't want to go over them because I don't want to take up too much time. But again, this is section 3.1 on page 13 of the RFP. Those are your minimum qualifications. Next, evaluation criteria. These are on page 14 of the RFP, and this is section 3.4. I'm going to make this, there we go. So evaluation criteria are here. They are your work proposal and approach, respondent work proposal and approach, capacity, organization and staff experience, and pricing. And then each of those items are going to be addressed in the attachments that I have listed here. So your work proposal and approach is going to be reflected in attachment B, your capacity in attachment D, that's the capacity calculator, organization and staff experience, attachments A and E, and then of course your pricing is attachment C, that spreadsheet. So everyone's going to have to fill out that spreadsheet completely, please, for your pricing. All of the criteria are weighted at 25 points each for a total of 100. All right. Then required proposal content and format. These are in section, I want to say 4.2, yes, 4.2, and that's located on pages 16 and 17. So everything here is required. So your letter transmittal with your statement that your proposal is good for 120 days. Attachment A, that's your responding questionnaire. Attachment B, attachment C, as I just mentioned, your pricing sheet, capacity calculator, employee experience. All of these must be completed and returned with your proposal. Then, of course, we have attachment G, our forms, affidavits, and documentation. They are required. Some of them do require notarization. Just read through each of them and just make sure you're completing everything thoroughly, okay? We're going to need your residential builders or alterations maintenance license. A copy of that current license must be included with your proposal. Proof of registration with the BC, City of Detroit Building Safety, Engineering, and Environmental Department, going by the acronym BC. We need that proof of registration, your current proof of registration. Proof of $1 million bonding capacity, a letter from your bonding agent indicating that you have $1 million bonding capacity. We will verify those letters. Please know that. Also, a certificate of liability insurance. You will refer to the model professional services contract, attachment H, for the insurance requirement. And the certificate must have this information included. Did I do a double thing? Okay, maybe I did. I'm not sure. Okay, and then BC roof requirements. I think that's for reference for you. And then in red, I have here attachment K, your bid bond form. All respondents must furnish a bid bond in the amount of 5% of your total proposed cost. So all proposals must have a bid bond included. And then finally, just a little statement. I probably could have done this in red, but please review your submissions for accuracy and completeness prior to submission. That was a note requested by HRD. It's very important. Please make sure you're double checking, triple checking your proposals before you submit them, okay? Because we may not be able to ask you, hey, did you mean to send this with it? No, that's the onus is on you. Please make sure you submit everything, valid documentation, everything current documentation with your proposal. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. And there's a list of RFP attachments. This is the last page of the RFP, has everything. I tried to highlight in red everything that needs to be returned. HRD and Darlene will verify that. And at that time, that's all that I have. At this, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Darlene and the Renew Detroit team.
Thank you so much, Jamila, for that. We appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. If you can give me just a thumbs up, let me know that you can see some slides on your screen. That is amazing. Discuss our roof and window RFP for Renew Detroit. Michael, I see your hand is up. Just want to double check. Oh, okay. Gotcha. So we are here to discuss this RFP for Renew Detroit. I'm going to go over a few items just to go ahead and get us started. All of this information is part of the RFP that Jamila reviewed. So again, want to make sure that you all are thoroughly going through those documents. It is set up for you to succeed with all of the information that you need. So we're going to be running through a summary today. However, all of those details are included in that PDF. So first thing for project background, as we mentioned, this is a combined RFP. We are looking for servicers that can provide both roof and window replacements and all of those related services. The time frame for this RFP is December of 2024 through June of 2025. Part of this is related to the Renew Detroit program. If you're not familiar, it is an ARPA or American Rescue Plan Act funded program that was birthed out of the funds that the city of Detroit received after the pandemic. Specifically, Renew Detroit is an essential home repair program that looks to provide repairs for senior citizen and disabled residents throughout the city of Detroit. The program was slated to provide up to 2,000 residential home repairs between the years of 2022 and 2024. And this final RFP that we're talking about today is going to include roofs and windows so that we can cover our phase 2 residents. And so phase 2 residents are given an option based on the condition of their home as determined by our team of whether they're going to receive roofs or windows. And so that is what we are soliciting for today. And we are looking for up to 2 contracts. That means we may award 1 or 2. Next thing that we want to go over today as well is just a little bit about our team. So we got a chance to do introductions earlier, but Renew Detroit is set up as a 3-pronged program. So we have a program which is resident facing. So a program team that handles all of our interactions with our residents. We like to maintain control of that so that we can ensure a certain level of service. We've also had the luxury of building rapport with our residents over the years as well, which makes it a lot easier when it comes time for construction. We also have an operations team that works with all of our administrative and data components for our program. So as you can imagine, we are a high volume program doing up to 2,000 repairs. It's a lot of information that has to be managed through that. And so we have an operations portion of our team that handles that. And then our construction team. So for today, Brittany Drake and myself will be presenting this information to you. At the beginning of the call, you got an opportunity to meet a few faces from our team. And these are the folks that you'll be interacting with if you get an opportunity to work with us. Our goal for Renew Detroit, so we have 2. So the first goal is to drastically increase the annual number of home repairs provided by the city of Detroit. And we have confidently and comfortably done that over the past 2 years. And so we will continue to do that until our program is over. And then also to double or triple the existing capacity of home repair. We have comfortably and confidently done that. And so we are looking to continue to do that as we close out our last phase of Renew Detroit. So how do we do that? Well, we do that by taking an assembly line approach, which is I guess makes a lot of sense being in the Motor City. So what we do is we standardize. So a lot of what you will see with programs when you bid for city home repair programs is that you are bidding on a specific home. We do not take that approach. Instead, what you are doing is you are bidding on a specific process. So in this case, we are looking at both roof and window replacements. So you would be providing pricing for roofs and windows, and you would be providing that based on a standard. So whether it's a roofing square, a window opening, a square foot, a linear foot, etc. And we will be doing that instead of actual individual homes. That allows us to be able to move much quicker and also be able to do the volume that we do so expediently. The other thing is that we limit each home to 1 major repair. So there are, for example, home repair programs that will go into a home and do 2, 3, 4 different things. We do not do that. So we limit each homeowner to 1. So a homeowner will either get a roof replacement or they will get window replacement. They will not get both. They will not get multiple things going on at once. So that also helps us move quickly. The other thing that we focus on and that we're very proud of is the support that we provide our contractors in order to help them also move as quickly as possible. So liaising with BC to help us move through the permitting process and the closeout process, our invoicing process that we do with Net 7 terms, standardized templates for everything, schedule templates, invoicing templates, photo templates, all of that has already been done, and we take the opportunity to onboard you, show you that process so that we can move quickly. And then our weekly meetings that we do that we look forward to very much with our contractors, where we go through everything that is happening, anything that we need to know, anything that needs to be addressed. And we use that time to make sure that we are both providing the support that they need, but also making sure that if there's anything that we can do, that we are doing that as well. So what we're going to go over now is I'm going to pass over to Brittany. She's our construction manager, and she's going to go over some detailed scope of work information. And as I had mentioned earlier, please remember all of this information is already in the RFP as well. So if you miss anything, you can always review that there as well too. Thanks, Britt.
Thank you, DC. Good morning again, everyone. So I want to take some time and make sure that we are going over the scope of work, highlighting all of the details that you're going to be finding within the RFP. So for Renew Detroit, if you are selected to work with us, and I'm excited for whoever out of the bunch today is going to work with us. I think that you would enjoy it very much, just with the work that we're doing and also the team that we have. So if you are selected to work with Renew Detroit, the contractors are going to receive a list of preliminary homes. Those are going to be the homes that are described within the contract, with about approximately 70. So within that list of homes, we would ask you then to provide us bids for the set of homes that are assigned to you. And by doing that, you will be supplying us with a hover, a Eagle View, or any other aerial report that is going to allow us to get the all of the numbers and all the measurements that we need for said homes, right? So within our bids that you are going to submit to us, our quotes are not to exceed 115% plus 1 square of what is reported on your Eagle View or your hover report. By doing that, we are already allowing you all contractually that extra waste, which is considered probably about at 10% on most of the area reports. So we also use our RD square calculator that is going to automatically give you all that waste or that 115% plus 1 square for each property. And it's a very helpful tool. And I'm always going to recommend that you guys kind of play around with that when you are looking at the attachments to the RFP. So you're keeping that in mind. Within the aerial reports, also, we are going to be requiring that they are showing the window openings for every window on that property. RD is going to advise which windows that we are going to be including for the roof replacements. That is going to be at our discretion once we are taking a look at the bids that you all are submitting to us, and also the condition of the home. The work can only begin at the properties for Renew Detroit once the terms of agreement are signed by our resident, by the city, and also that we have ensured that the BC permits have been issued. So as DC mentioned, you guys are going to work with us very closely. That is one highlight, I believe, of our program, that we have been able to really foster a great relationship with BC. So our permitting really runs pretty smoothly. And if we do have any hiccups, which I'm sure you all could probably give me some feedback on, any issues that you've had previously with permitting, but that is one of the highlights of our program. So our contractors must provide Renew Detroit with the delivery dates, the construction start dates. So we always ask that you guys are going to provide that to us. We are not allowed to deliver any materials on any properties without the terms of agreement being signed by the resident. And we are not allowed to start any construction on our properties without those TOAs being signed, because as you all know, construction is a very legal process. So when you guys are bidding, and we're always going to ask that you go and you are pulling your eyes on the site, whether that is a field supervisor that you may have, or there's that you going out yourself to complete these bids. The reason why we need you all to go out and to really fully take a look at the scope of work is because any findings outside of the scope of work that you are not communicating with Renew Detroit may not be able to approved at the time that you are completing that work, if they are able to be found prior to. So we want to make sure that you're communicating any findings that you are seeing on site, whether that be, for example, cedar shake, if you're able to see it. If we know that there is a flat roof that maybe has some concerns in those areas, we want to make sure that those are things that we're highlighting on our bid submissions throughout our program, to make sure that we have a full scope before we go out and actually open up those roofs. Our established photo policy is going to require photos throughout the entire process. So we want to make sure that we have photos from the day that you guys would be walking the roofs. We want to make sure that we have photos for when the roof is open. So we're seeing whatever existing material is there, whether that be some sheathing, whether that be some cedar shake, so we can make sure that we're knowing what exactly that we're working with. We're also going to be looking for photos of ice and water shield. For example, we're going to be looking for photos of the completed roof, even down to detailed photos showing where our flashing is on the roofing. So our repairs are always going to include the manufacturer's warranty, and of course the minimum Michigan 12-month warranty on the installation, which is also going to include the 18-month completion period.
Perfect. And then I just wanted to add in here, so as I had mentioned in the beginning, We only do one major repair per home. So we will advise our contractors what repair will be going on at each home, so you will know if it is a roof home or if it is a window home. So just something to keep in mind: if it is a roof home, you have certain criteria that you need to make sure that you're following. If it is a window home, you have certain criteria there as well. Biggest thing to note, as Brittany mentioned, is making sure that you have those measurement reports, as we will be using those. And then also making sure that you have detailed photographs of everything that is happening on that site. You're on mute.
Thank you. So all the items listed below are going to be completed within 15 calendar days of the start. So when we say start, we mean that we have given you the green light, you have scheduled your property, and you all are going out to start the roof. So we want to make sure that we have removed and properly disposed of all of the previous shingles and or sheeter shake, that we have replaced any rotted sheathing, that we have rebuilt any damaged rafters or support beams. We want to ensure that all the roofs are completed to Michigan and City of Detroit code requirements. When we add the City of Detroit code requirements, I want to make sure that you all know that there are going to be some additional requirements, specifically when it comes to gutters and making sure that those are 5 feet out. So that is something that we're going to make sure during our walks, and also during your all's closing walks, and when you're submitting the photos to us, that we want to make sure that we are adding that extra link to the gutters. Install all necessary venting and flashing, to replace all gutters and downspouts to code, to pull and receive approval for all your proper permits, and clean site of all construction materials once roof replacement is complete. So we want to make sure that we're not leaving any additional shingles on site, we're not leaving any debris, we're not leaving any nails. So we want to make sure we leave the properties always in a better condition than what we found them. And all of the items listed below must be completed with 4 calendar days of start. So we want to make sure that, again, we are, for our window replacements, that we are removing, properly disposing of our existing windows. We do not want to leave those on site, that we are installing new windows and screens, including the aluminum wrapping and caulking. We want to make sure that we have trimmed out the inside of these windows as well, the foam installation around the windows, lead clearance at the conclusion of repair for each home, applicable, pull and receive approval for all proper permits, and that we are cleaning these sites again of the materials once window replacement is complete. Gary, I see your hand is up. I see a hand.
Yeah, thank you. When you say trim the inside of the windows, are you referring to just quarter round, or are you referring to casings?
So it's going to depend. Every window is different, but we want to make sure that we're getting the casings. Depending on the decorative quarter round, will determine that based on each window.
So potentially casings are being done as well.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
It's going to depend on what the existing is looking like, but every window, same thing as
Sure.
our roofs. Yep. Okay, and for our other RFP highlights, we want to make sure that we are abiding by the photo policy that I mentioned. So here we're going to find some examples of photos that we are going to be looking for. And in order for us to consider a project complete and also to pay out, we're going to make sure that we have all of these photos. So we have here exposed decking and ice and water shield. We've got some close-up photos of the fat flashing. We also have venting here. We have a full photo of the front and the rear view of the properties. In the lower right, we want to make sure also, when I talk about making sure that we have these photos, not only for our each step of the construction process, we want to make sure that we are able to capture photos that we are calling out for project change. So if we have any change orders that are going to be requested, we want to make sure that we have photos equivalent to these showing exactly what work was completed during the project change. For our windows, these are examples of photos that we are going to be looking for, similarly to our roof replacements. We want to make sure that we have showed the existing windows in the trim. We're showing what the window opening looks like with that window removed. We're also going to show a new window being installed, and we're of course going to need our close-up and our step back photos. And here, I believe I'm passing back to DC to review the RFP highlights.
Thank you so much, Britt. So just a couple of items for us to review. I know that Jamila mentioned some of this at the beginning, but doesn't hurt for us to review once more. So when you're going through the RFP, there is a section 2.1.3 that goes over roles and responsibilities. Definitely something good to take a look at. Goes over all of the extensive work that our team puts in through every single property. So what you can expect from us, but also details what we are expecting from you as a contractor for Renew Detroit. You do become an extension of our team, and we do take that very seriously. So we want to make sure that you kind of understand what you're getting into when you become a Renew Detroiter like ourselves. The other thing that I want to go over as well are the minimum requirements. So as Jamila had mentioned, we do require the license, so your residential builder's license or your alterations license to be submitted. Please make sure that you are including everything that is required. I am actually going to go through all of these items once more, just because it is so serious to ensure that they are included. You need to make sure that you are registered with BSeed, so please make sure that you do that and that you're including that information. You also need to show your prior experience. So what we are looking for here is 10 window replacements and 7 roof replacements as of January 1st. So what we're looking for there, when you go through your attachments, there are going to be spots for you to fill in examples of homes that you've completed. Please include those for windows and those for roofs. When we talk about complex, and that had come up in the chat, what we're really looking for, as I mentioned in the beginning, is our program is directly targeting residents in the city of Detroit, not 2024. So we're looking at examples starting from 2022. So the last 2 years, you will give us examples of items that you've completed, Valda. So any windows or roofs for the past 2 years is what we're looking for there. So what we're really wanting to make sure that our contractors know and understand is that we're working with the housing stock of the city of Detroit. A lot of our residents have not had these types of major repairs on their homes. You also understand that a lot of our homes are pre-1950. So we need to make sure that when we're talking about roof replacements and window replacements, that you can show as a company, as a contractor, that you are able to complete these types of repairs on the homes that are in the city of Detroit. So that is really what we're going to be looking for. What we put an emphasis on is that you're able to do that. So it's wonderful if you are an expert at new construction. However, the odds of finding new construction in our program are pretty much slim. So we're not going to put a lot of weight to that. We want to see that you can come in and you can do these homes that were built, 100 years ago, and you know how to put a roof on them. We want to see that you're able to handle homes that have cedar shake. We want to see that you know how to handle single pane homes that have never had windows replaced, and that you're able to do that cautiously and you're able to do that responsibly with our residents. The other thing as well that we're looking for, as always, just successful prior experience with any national, state, local environmental regulations, which you should be familiar with, as well as, and I'll do this plug on Jamila's behalf, making sure you have all of your city contracting requirements, please. So please make sure you've done your SAM registrations. Please make sure you have all your clearances, your tax clearances, your affidavits. Like, please, please, please have those completed, your insurance, your bonding, make sure all of that is together when you are submitting and that your package is complete. So we recommend, just from experience doing this over and over and over, that you prep everything in advance. Although we know the deadline, don't wait for that day. Please get these items together in advance. Also, as well as a reminder for questions. So if you are putting everything together and you have questions, just keep in mind that there is a deadline by when to submit those through the portal. As far as respondent requirements, there are set tables in order to do these items. So I'm going to actually go through some of these as well with you all, just so that you have an opportunity to put eyes on them. But before we do that, just a couple of items to note from our RFP. If you've looked at any Renew Detroit RFPs, you should be familiar with some of these. Brad, to answer your question before I move forward, if there is rotted wood, it is part of our scope within our contract that it be removed. So if there is rotted fascia, that would be incorporated into what we are doing as well. So liquidated damages is something that I want to touch on, and you'll see that in our contract. So just making sure that we're staying on schedule. So as I mentioned, we are an ARPA funded program. We do have deadlines that we need to meet, and we are looking to far exceed those deadlines and finish as soon as possible. And so that requires us to stay on schedule. And the way that we do that is by holding each other accountable. And so just making sure that when we've started work on homes, whether it's a roof replacement home or a window replacement home, we have a specific set of calendar days that we're looking for. Anything that goes above and beyond those days gets charged $50 a day, as well as making sure that there's compliance with our closing walk. So if we are working on a property and we have obvious non-compliance, don't have our team go out there and do a closing walk, because what we're doing is wasting resources. So just making sure that we are being mindful of that. If we do find any of that when we go out there, that's $150 a visit, and we put that all as credits back on our invoices. The other thing I want to mention as well, based on measurement. So Brittany mentioned our square count calculator, and I'll pull that up for you all to see. But we do use our specific contractual waste calculation for roofs. So we do the 115% plus 1, and we do require measurement reports for all repairs, whether windows or roofs. And then, of course, anything that unreasonably exceeds what we are seeing from a measurement perspective, we have the right to review and go back to you with as well. So let me pull this up real quick. So what I'm going to go over first, just to give just a brief review of some of these attachments and items that we're going to go over. So the first thing we talked about was the square calculator. The square calculator is not something that you have to return, but it is something that's important for you to understand, especially as we are working through any roof projects. So for example, here on the screen, you will see the green box is where you would type in the number of squares from your aerial report for a roof. In this case, you are using this 0% calculation in order to put into this green box. The calculator itself will do the math for you and round up and then give you the squares that you can bid for that home. So here, for example, if we have a home where the Eagle View report says it is 13.67 squares, you would be able to bid up to 17 squares for that house. And so this is just something you want to make sure that you get familiar with, because it'll play into how you are doing actual bids for each home. The next thing I do want to go over with you as well are pricing sheets. So for this RFP, you have 2 pricing sheets. You have one for roofs and you have one for windows, and they are separate. And so the biggest thing to note here is that yellow boxes need to be filled in. So please make sure you are being mindful of the unit of measurement. We see a lot of errors where the unit of measurement is not being considered, and so that is skewing your results. So please be mindful of the differences between a roofing square and a regular square foot, between linear foot and all of that. Please be mindful of those things. So this is what our roofing pricing sheet will look like, and it is broken out by roof pitch. And then we also have a separate pricing sheet for windows that you will complete. Please be mindful that this is a combined contract, so we need all of the attachments filled in. You can't just submit the one for roofs or just submit the one for windows. That would be considered an incomplete submission. So please make sure you are filling in everything that is there. This is the pricing sheet for windows. It's pretty straightforward, that you will fill in as well. The next thing that you will notice that has a double sheet will be your capacity calculator. So earlier, Jamila mentioned there are certain levels of capacity that we are looking for from our vendors. So this first sheet is for roofs. You will put in the number of crews that you notice. And actually, give me 1 second, because I feel like I hear some background. There we go. I think I took care of that. So the first one for roofs, you'll just type in all of the separate crews that you have. It'll calculate for you the number of estimated crews that you are able to put out for roofing in a month. You'll also have an opportunity at the bottom if you have any additional comments or anything that you feel that changes the capacity that you have, you'll be able to make note of that at the bottom. And then you'll have the similar submission for windows. So we're looking for how many crews you have for windows and what that looks like. And then the biggest thing to note here is that, again, we require that both of these be filled out, not just the one. So it is a combination contract. We want to make sure that all of these are completed. You'll also have an opportunity as well throughout the attachments to give us information about your company, about your experience in the industry as well. So just make sure that you're being mindful of the questions being asked. Some are related to windows, some are related to roofs. We do require that all of it be completed. So next thing I'm going to go over just to kind of wrap up our slides is project timeline. So making sure that we have all of our questions in by the due date, as well as just a quick plug again that Jamila mentioned. Oracle does not default to Eastern time. So unless you've changed your settings, please make sure you're being mindful of having all of your things in by the deadline. Also with the work schedule, be mindful as well that work start dates are dependent on City Council approval and completion of an in-person contractor onboarding session. So that is everything that I have. And then I will turn it back to you, Jamila, for Q&A, and I'll keep an eye on the chat as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I was actually starting to reply to one, but it was one in here, Darlene, that came in about the survey report. You want to answer that? From Johnny Hardiman?
Yep, I was just typing it back, so I'll put it in writing
Okay.
and we'll state it as well. So the aerial reports, measurement reports, Johnny, will always be provided to us by our vendors. So whether that's Hover, Roofer, Eagle View, all of that will be provided along with the bid, if that's what you mean. Unless you mean something else, Brittany, I see you, so I'll let you answer.
I was just going to ask to the environmental surveys.
Is
that what you're asking, Johnny? Or do you mean the measurement reports? Brittany's trying to clarify.
I guess environmental.
Gotcha. Yes, so you'll be providing the lead clearance report
That, and
after
I'm
we are
wondering,
completed.
is the question is that, are we providing it to him? Like, 'cause it says, will there be, that's what I was looking for clarity on.
Gotcha.
But it
So,
seems like, I don't think he can come off mute.
Probably.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So we would be looking for all of that to be provided. Our team would not be doing that, Johnny. So
Correct.
hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, and then from Lori Taylor, she says submitting forms in Oracle, do everything submitted, uploaded have to be PDF, not Excel. So I would say, like, if it's an Excel document, like the capacity calculator, the pricing sheet, you can leave that as it is in Excel. Your required documents like the affidavits and whatnot, I would probably send those as PDFs. Michael McShane, your hand is raised.
Yes, on the hazardous material, you're saying the contractor has to do have the homes tested for hazardous material? Because we could be,
Correct.
you mentioned lead, but we could be dealing with asbestos or other hazardous material as well.
Correct. So we're asking, so I'm still catching up in the chat. So I'm looking, I was looking at Johnny's question and just for the environmental surveys. So you guys are saying what Johnny said is correct. It's going to be from a third party, but we would not be responsible for getting those reports from Renew Detroit, not the city of Detroit.
So the contractor has to pay the third party to do
Correct.
those reports. Okay. How is that reflected on that pricing sheet?
It's a separate
Let me
line
just,
item. Yeah, it's a separate line item in the window
Now,
pricing sheet.
Is the contractor responsible for the permits? The price of the permits?
Go ahead, Britt. I'll let you
correct.
answer.
Okay, what about, are there, if there are existing code violations, or is the contractor required to, correct them?
So when you say code violations, are we talking specifically blight clearances, and things like that? Or are you saying just on the property itself?
Well, any code violation on the property. These are old homes. When you go into them, there are code violations. We're supposed to be doing just roofs and windows, but if there's an existing code violation, will the city expect us to correct it?
Correct. So our scope of work is going to require that we're bringing whatever area of the property that we are submitting a permit for or working on up to code. So if we're talking specifically blight clearances or previous code violations, we would not have to worry about that within our permitting process because we're submitting Renew Detroit permit applications. If you are selected, we'll definitely go through that on our onboarding and how to make sure that our permits are reflecting Renew Detroit. We're also going to be required to submit a page of the RFP, which is going to include the scope of work to BSeed when we are applying for the permits.
Okay, so it would only be code violations that involve the roof or the windows.
Correct. And those would not apply to us because our program is requiring us to bring them up to code.
Right.
So we would not have to pay for those if that's what you're asking. There's
So
no
if the-
requirement.
So if the windows, a particular window opening does not meet egress requirements, we would have to enlarge the opening to meet egress?
So we're not doing any egress windows. So that'll be very
Excuse me?
helpful. We're not going to be doing any egress windows, but if the window opening is not up to code, of course, we are going to be required to bring it up to code with our repair.
Okay, so if it doesn't meet egress, we would have to enlarge the opening?
Correct.
Okay, now, the window just says window pricing STC 27. Is there a specification for the windows to be used? I mean, is it vinyl windows? And even if it's vinyl windows, there's a big price difference between a double hung, a single hung, a fixed, a casement, a slider. Your price sheet only has just one window price.
Correct. So our windows are going to be priced per opening. So it's going to be dependent upon which materials that you all are using. Of course, every window is going to be different. We are not going to be replacing all windows in certain properties. So we may say, hey, we're only going to do a bathroom window and a bedroom window here. So it's really going to determine which materials that you all are using and also how you are considering that when you are completing your bid submissions or RFP submissions, I'm sorry.
I mean, are we replacing like with like for that, we're putting in whatever was existing, that's what's going in to replace it? Or will the homeowner have the option to change the style of the window if they want?
So we're going to do whatever is going to be best, one for our program and two for the property. So, and I want to kind of circle back to what Gary said earlier. Every window is going to be different, specifically because, like DC Darlene said, a lot of these properties may have never had window replacements, right? So there may be an opportunity for us to do some replacements where we know that the framing is right and we know that we don't have to do any casings. So we're just going to go in and we're going to throw in a new window where we're doing a pocket window and we don't have to replace the entire framing. Or we're going to go in and we're going to do a new full frame window replacement because we know that the framing, because the wood around it may not be secure. So it's really just going to depend on each property, one, and then the condition of the windows once you guys are submitting those bid submissions to us. And then Gary, I see your hands up as well.
Wait,
Okay,
I'm
but
sorry,
that,
Andy. I want to
one
go
more
to,
follow-up.
excuse, Michael, do you
Yeah.
mind? I want to go to some other people. So
Okay.
Andy PCC was next. Andy, please go ahead and then we'll come to you, Gary.
Lead certification, you said third party. Can it be done in-house even though the lab work will be done?
Correct.
You guys-
So you're saying you have someone that is certified on staff, but the reporting is going out to a separate lab.
Andy, are you good with that?
If so,
you're
then
mute.
yes.
You're mute, Andy. Let me try to unmute you. I can't unmute you. Okay, Andy, you're muted. I'll come back to you if necessary. So we're going to go to Gary and then we're going to go to Theophis, I believe, Mr. Thomas. So Gary, go ahead, please.
I also see
So-
another hand raised
Yeah,
too.
there's some questions in the chat too. We'll come to those. Go ahead, Gary.
Thank you. If we're replacing just a few windows in a home and say they have brown windows, are we only replacing them with white or beige?
That is probably going to be our standard. So, just for awareness, we want to make sure that all of our contractors here are understanding that we are an essential home repair program. Unfortunately, we are not a, hey, I literally love this window and I want to replace this window with this. So, similar to how our standard is white gutters for our roof replacements, we may be down to white window framing just for our windows. So it's not going to be where our residents are saying, hey, I would love this color. I want this kind of window. I want this type of window in my bathroom replaced to this window. So we want to make sure that we're going to keep in mind that our scope of work is always going to be our priority. Bringing all of these properties up to code is our priority. There's not going to be a lot of resident preference here. So, yep, Gary, if that answers your question, yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas, thank you, Gary. Mr. Thomas, I know you put questions in the chat and you've raised your hand. So you want to go ahead and then maybe you want to verbalize the questions you put in the chat. Go right ahead, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I already did a couple of projects for you all. I wasn't a direct contractor. I was dealing with someone, and I kept noticing that over the course of the conversation, y'all kept saying roof calculator. Now that calculator don't calculate valleys and everything. So y'all already had it calculated at 15 square. By the time the install was actually done, we was at 20 square. So that's just one part of a situation that I came up. Now the second part is the store, ABC, who y'all dealing with, came out and they wasn't willing to put the materials up on the roof because there was so many layers up there. That being said, the roof we was working on had 5 or 6 layers. Now, code in the city is only 2 layers. How do it go when we come across a roof that got 4, 5, 6 layers? Do we upcharge or y'all just got a flat rate for oh, it's only supposed to be so many squares? Because I came across where they got a 10, 15, 20-yard dumpster, but by the time all the debris hit the ground, you need a 30 or 40-yard dumpster. And it was already spoken on before we got to that point. So I'm just saying, how do that go when y'all come across them type of endeavors and challenges when the actual hands-on contractor, because I want to do business with you all, but I want to get a good understanding, like y'all are saying, that a lot of these properties are, like you say, 100 years old and they've been re-roofed 4, 5, 6 times. So by the time we come across them, we got to beat ourselves up to the point where instead of it being 5,000 pounds of debris on the ground, it's 20,000 pounds of debris.
So I want to start with the first question. Is the first question in reference to the square calculator and how we're calculating the waste?
It's I already know every layer is every layer. If it's a 15 square house, okay, that's 15 square on top that you see, but it's 3 below it. We have 15, 30, 45.
So
we
we're
got
talking
40.
about the layers of shingles? Okay,
Yes,
so when
ma'am.
we're bidding, if you look at the attachments for the RFP, it's going to be per line item. So if you're looking, we're actually going to capture removing in addition to 2 layers. So, and I don't have it up to show here the slides, but for example, if you're going to be bidding a
I
roof
can pull
that
it
has,
if you
oh,
want me to.
perfect, that would be
Okay,
wonderful,
give me
just so I could show it really quick.
Okay, okay. And what am I pulling the
No, yep, if
square
you could
calculator?
just zoom out just a bit. And we're gonna scroll up. Yep, I just want to see the top of the sheet. And I'm gonna use the
Oh,
first
who has?
pitch table, for example, or I could
Oh,
use
okay.
912. So if we're looking here at our bid template, perfect. Our bid template, our roofing cost per square with a roof pitch of 812. So here we're gonna call out removing 1 layer of shingles and install 3 layer of dimensional shingles. That is going to be for a basic, we are just removing and we are replacing. So for example, if we had cedar shake, we're going to say that we're removing 1 layer of shingles along with a layer of cedar shake, and we're going to resheath. So if we have additional layers of shingles, the way that we would capture that is we would go down to line 12 and we would say the cost for each additional layer of shingle after removal of first 2, because we have captured already 2 layers of shingles here. So if there are 5 layers, then we are going to call out 3 additional layers using that 12 for that line item per the square.
Understood.
Okay. Wonderful.
Awesome. Okay, I want to go to Candace from Big Black Construction in the chat. She says, will we have an opportunity once our bids are submitted or saved? Can we reach out to someone to make sure everything is completed correctly in case an error is found after submitting? I would first double check, triple check before you submit. And then, yes, if you are submitting before the deadline, I think I'd be willing to do a verification for you. I think I gotta be careful with that because like I just said, I would double check and triple check that you're submitting everything on the attachments list. But I can verify, I will be able to verify with you that your proposal was submitted. I can do that. I'm not going to be able to tell you if you included everything. I can't do that. But I will be able to tell you that your proposal was submitted. So then Johnny Hardiman, I think that, oh, this is a good question. If the reports determine that there is lead or asbestos present, the homeowner needs to be relocated until the work is complete. Is there a line item to cover this? Darlene and Brittany?
Yep, I answered all of the questions that came up in the chat. So if you'd like, Jamila,
Oh,
since
you
it's
did?
for the record,
Yep.
I did.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. For recording
Mhm.
purposes, I can always just go through them out loud.
Okay.
That might be easier. And I'm just going to go in order of what I see.
Oh, yeah, I see all
Um,
your responses here now. Okay.
yes, no problem. So we already answered the one about permits. The window requirements are under section 2.1.1A. It reviews the types of windows required. We never specify material type. It's up to the vendor to provide that to us. Whoever is selected will provide us any warranties and product information that we require. Yes, to Johnny's question about relocating the homeowner if there is lead or asbestos present, that's on page 5 of 24 of the RFP, and it specifically calls out relocation information there. Next question, what is the timeline expectations on windows? How many properties are available? You stated this is the final batch for Renew. Will Renew be ending completely? Will windows be required in this program going forward or just this round? So for that question, all of this again is also in the RFP. So page 5 and 6 of the RFP goes over the timeline for windows. So we are looking at a 4-day turn time at each home. And then the timeline overall for this RFP is December through June of next year. The number of homes approximation is on page 3 of 24. It's approximately 70 homes. That number, of course, is an approximation. Renew Detroit has exhausted all of its funding. And so that's all I can say about that because we only have as much as we have. And then Windows is only related to phase 2 for that portion. Then the next question about shingle storage, if there are the shingle stores based on the number of layers. So contractors are required to source their material suppliers and vendors to work with them to determine what's the best process of removal, depending on each specific home. Any additional layers that are associated with a home are captured on the pricing sheet based on the pitch of the roof. Then the next question was related to confirm if the contractor is expected to perform lead testing for every home. Is the testing just for windows? Is the contractor responsible for relocating customers if necessary? And will there be any historical homes included? And so then I put, based on the RFP, there's a requirement for lead clearance at the end of each project related to the Renew scope. Relocation will be specific to each resident, and our team will work with the hired contractor to review that. The stipend is noted also again in the RFP, and there may be historical homes as noted also in page 3 of the RFP. And that captures everything.
And there's one more question that just dropped after you were done reading DC. So it says, what is the process for measuring the windows? So similar to how we are, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you, because I'm going to address Lori Taylor, but go ahead, Brittany.
Okay. Oh, I see the question before that. I'm sorry. Yes. So our window measurements are going to be verified by the reports that are going to be submitted. So for example, EagleView is going to measure the openings or Hover report or something similar.
Okay. And then Lori, yes, I uploaded a pricing sheet in Oracle. I remember that. I think it was the format that you used. So try to just use Excel, the latest version, or if you're doing like it's a pricing sheet, it's in an Excel document, keep it as Excel. like all of those, everything that comes as an Excel, try to keep it in the format that it's already presented to you in. Again, like I said, if it's your affidavits and documentation, that can be PDF, but just make sure it's a format. And if, of course, if it's something I can't see, if it's not communicating with our system, of course, I'm gonna have to ask you for it again. I want to go to Floyd because Floyd has had his hands up. And then Mr. Thomas, your hand is still up. So I don't know if you still have questions. You want to nod? You still have a question? Give me a nod and I'll come back to you.
Not really.
Or lower your hand. Okay, so Mr. Floyd, you can go ahead because you've been waiting for a while.
Okay, thank you. How y'all doing?
Well,
Okay.
thank you.
Good. All right, so I just got two questions. So when it comes to the historical buildings, let's say they have the slate tile roof. Are we replacing the slate tile back with a slate tile or redecking that and going back with a shingle? And also, let's say I know some of these homes are, like you said, 100 years old, and they might have space decking, right? But it still have shingles on there, but it's space decking. Once we tear it down or go in the attic and see that it's space decking, are we putting in our bid to redeck that because it's quarter-inch gap between each 1x6? And if so, how do we, bid for that?
Well, I'll let you take the first half, DC, and relevance to the HDC.
Yep. So this RFP does not have any historical roofs associated with it, so you will not be dealing with that. The possibility for historical is on the window portion. However, that is a bridge we'll get to if we get to it. But Britt, I'll let you answer the second part.
And as far as the bids, we have line items for everything that you described. So if we're going to need to redeck, then we are going to, of course, redeck. We would capture that again. If you take a look at that doc attachment that Jamila pulled up, you'll just run through that. And I want you to keep in mind when you're looking at bids and how we are capturing our bids, that there are going to be line items in addition to how your what the first scope is. So if we know that we're going to be removing, for example, slate or shingles, then we know that we want to capture that. If there are going to be additional layers, if we're going to need to redeck additional areas of the property or more wood is going to be needed, we're going to capture that per line item.
Okay.
So we'll use all the
just in
line items
case,
applicable.
so if a house it's not historical, but it still might have a slate or wood, are we tearing those off and going back with wood or slate, or we tearing that off and going back with a shingle?
So because we don't have any historical homes, if there are slate roofs that are going to be that we have, I do not believe we have any more. I'm
None?
hoping that
Okay.
that is the case. But
Gotcha.
when we're not dealing with the HDC, we do have the option of changing that. So we could remove slate and add shingles. We would just need to make
Okay.
sure once we got to the property, what we're looking at, how we would do that, and also how it would change the home, and depending on how RD wants to measure that or what we want to approve.
All right. Thank you.
I
Jamila, there was a
forgot who's
question
next.
for you in the
Yeah,
chat as well
thank
about
you.
affidavits or something
Yeah,
like that.
I'm gonna address that, and then Mr. Patel, I'll come to you. So, Candace from Big Block, recent affidavits, yes. Your affidavits, if they're within the past 90 days, that's fine. Just please know that everything has to be renewed annually. Okay, so if it's dated within the past 90 days, it's fine. Make sure that tax clearance though is good and not expiring soon. Mr. Patel, you can go ahead. Your hand is up.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
I was
morning.
wondering about the historic windows because historic department windows are wood windows, not the vinyl we can install it. So can we be specific on a window measurement? Like if it's a historic house, it's almost double the price on a windows by itself.
Yep. Thank you so much for bringing that up. So at this time, we don't have any. The way the RFP is written, it allows for that opportunity. And as we always do, we would take those one off and negotiate that pricing based on the specific home and HDC guidance. As of now, that's not what we're dealing with. But if we were to come across it, we would just get the individual pricing based on what we need on that home from the vendor.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for that.
Okay, are there any other questions here on the call?
Any shingle made before 1982 got asbestos in it. So how will we approach this if we know that there's already multiple layers up there? Should we just automatically is it a field test to say this house got asbestos, or is just like a common sense thing, like it's a old house, multiple layers, so just approach it as we already know it's asbestos, because that's pretty much what it is. I already know that.
So as the contractor, of course, we're going to ask you to approach it in the best way possible. When we are submitting bid submissions, if you are selected to work with Renew Detroit, our bid submission does ask for if there are any hazardous materials found. And then if you are selecting yes there, we are going to ask you to follow up with the steps that we are going to take in order to complete the project.
Mr. Floyd, your hand was up again. I'm gonna enter the information again for our e-procurement team in the chat, but Mr. Floyd, please go right ahead.
Yes, there's two other questions. So how do we show proof of the jobs we have done, right? I come from the insurance side. You know, we do over 200-300 roofs a year. But how would I equate that to showing proof that we have done to you guys, 10 roofs within a year? Is it something within our paper? And also, what do y'all consider a complex roof? I seen that, like, I just want to get a question on a complex roof.
I'm going to go ahead and take that. And I believe we reviewed that. So as far as complex roof, we talked about making sure that you have experience working on roofs in the city of Detroit.
Okay.
Working on roofs that are
Okay.
not new construction. Yep. And then as far as how you supply the references for what work you have done, that is one of the attachments that is required as part of your complete submission. So when you are doing attachments A and B, you're going to go through and you're going to write your work proposal, which is going to detail how you're going to handle the complexities of this RFP that have been provided to you, as well as where you're going to outline the 10 specific examples by providing addresses, contact information, etc. for each home, as well as what occurred at each home.
Okay, thank you.
Back to you, Jamil.
All right. Are there any other questions? I will say I'm very, it's great to see so many people here and so much engagement. All right, Michael McShane.
Yes, thank you. On the windows, are we required to use windows from the same manufacturer for all of the houses, all 70 houses, or is it on a per house basis when we submit our proposal for each house? It's like we're going to use XYZ window on this house.
Go ahead, Casey.
So I'm going to go ahead and take that one. So we again are going to defer to our contractors as the experts on what material they feel is necessary. From our experience, we find that it is best and easiest if you can stick to one manufacturer, just because there is usually what do you call that, advantages for having things in bulk. It also makes it easier from a property closeout standpoint, but ultimately it is up to the vendor to let us know what they used at each home and then to provide us the material and warranty information for that.
Good. Thank you.
No problem. Back to you, Jamila.
Thanks. Any other questions? Okay, I got Mr. Thomas, I muted you. You can have to unmute yourself, okay?
I have one last question. These materials go up and down like the stock market, because sometimes the OSB is $15, sometimes it shoot up to $20, $22. Same thing with the shingles. They go down to $30, they go up to $45 a bundle. So when we place these bids in, let's just say it's a fluctuation in the price. Is that gonna affect y'all? Worry about all the materials? Are we just giving a labor number, or are we giving the materials and a labor number? Because that fluctuation really affects some things. It could be a $2,000-$3,000 swing or $1,000 swing. I was just curious, how would that go? Because I done seen, y'all say it'll start off in 3-4 months, but in that time frame, that fluctuation can change quite a bit, even with the dumpsters.
So thank you for that question. So the way that we price, we are looking for our vendors to provide us an inclusive price for each line item. So for example, if we're looking at an 8/12 pitch, one layer, we want that pricing and it should be all inclusive. So what you'll be factoring in as the business owner there is any technology needs that you have, any overhead, any staff, any permits, anything that goes along with that. As you mentioned, materials do go up and down. So does labor. So does everything else. That's just the cost of doing business. In the same way that you'll have an upswing up that may be detrimental to you, you may have some upswings that are beneficial to you, and we don't go back and change them. So the biggest thing to note there is contractually, once we have the prices set, they are set. So we need to be mindful of that when you're planning. Usually, from a business standpoint, one of the things or one of the reasons I believe, and I could be wrong, but I'll let maybe other vendors chime in there, is that one of the benefits to Renew Detroit is that it's a high volume program. So you're not doing one house or two houses. There's a benefit in volume. And so usually you can exploit that volume to your advantage through your suppliers and your vendors when you know that you're coming in with a contract that's covering a certain number of homes. That's not one or two or three or five. So that would be my thoughts there. But back to you, Jamil.
Thank you. Okay, so we got two more questions. It's 12:10. We started at 11. I'd like to try to wrap this up in another 5 to 10 minutes. Normally we wrap up in about an hour, but because there are so many people, there's a lot of interest. I hope the HRD team doesn't mind. Thank you for your time. But we'll try to wrap it up in about 5 to 10 minutes. And again, whatever question that you may not have an opportunity to ask here, you definitely can ask that through the supplier portal. Okay, Mr. Estelle.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is William with John Mark Construction. I was just getting some clarification because he asked about the windows. So in the other programs, there's a contractor performance standard. Are we not meeting the contractor performance standard? Are we asked to bid according to our best pricing, or bid according to a contractor performance standard, which would have us bidding apples to apples? So everybody that submits a bid would bid on the same window for every project.
Thank you for asking that, William. That I believe what you're referencing is another home repair program within HRD. So we don't have that. What we have is what is in there for our submissions and how we function. So I'm not familiar with that process, unfortunately, because that's a different program.
Understood. But my bigger question was to be able to bid apples to apples. So once we submit a bid for the windows, if I understand you correctly, you're asking that we submit our best bid according to what we think is available, right?
Correct, within the parameters of the RFP. So we've supplied what type of window we want. We've supplied the fact that it's going to be per opening. And then at that point, we defer to the contractors to put together the information from there, similar to roofs. So we don't make a requirement towards a type of shingle, a specific manufacturer, a specific color choice. We don't do any of that. We allow our vendors to come up with that.
Great, thank you.
All right, Mr. Wilson.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm a veteran contract. We do veteran housing. Are there any stipulation, or has any veteran housing that roofs or windows that may be replaced? Have those residents or homes been identified as veteran housing? Because there's a lot of programs that go into place when we're replacing the roof or replacing windows. Sometimes they get discounts, or sometimes they may be HUD VASH, which is the HUD for veterans. Is there any type of stipulations or requirements when you're working on a veteran's home, if that makes sense?
Great question, Mr. Wilson. No, there is not. So our program specifically looks for the criteria that was developed for the program itself, which is senior citizen status and federal disability, and that is it. So no, we don't have that additional information from our residents.
Thank you.
No problem.
Good question. All right, so it's 12:13. Do I have one or two more? If not, we're gonna go ahead. Thank you, Lori. Thank you for joining, and thank you for participating. Any others? If not, again, please definitely submit your questions via the portal. I believe that was August 9th is the deadline. I'm just gonna double check that. Yep, August 9th, this Friday by 2 p.m. That's when those will need to be submitted. And just keep in mind, all questions that are submitted and answers are going to be published. So everyone's going to be on the same page. Again, this recording is going to be shared, hopefully by tomorrow. As I sent to someone in the chat, I'm going to upload it with the negotiation. So it's going to be included with all the documents. I'll also send it out to everyone that was invited to participate. And that should be good. So I want to thank you all again for joining us today, for participating, for the engagement. We look forward to receiving your proposals, and we look forward to working with whoever is selected. So thank you for your time and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you all, everyone. Great questions. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jamila.
Thanks, Jamila.
Thank you.
Thank you.